So many high performers, they face a situation where there is a gap between their ambition and their execution. And we're diving into that gap today with Mark Williams. Mark, thank you for being our guest today.
Of course. Thank you so much for having me, and completely agree. There's so many gaps between. Yeah.
It is. And I want your insight on it because you've really navigated that path pretty well. So what can you share with us about that gap?
Yeah. I would say, for one, as someone who has also faced a lot of different gaps between ambition and execution, I would say, honestly, I say this a lot to my friends. Maybe you drink a cup of coffee and you have a ton of ideas that you want to execute on that day. Sometimes I feel as though I can come up with the cure to cancer. It's really difficult for me to slow down and just kind of think of like what is achievable, what is realistic. I think with a lot of the tools that we have today, a lot of that is growing. And because, my field in terms of UX design and how we solve problems, a lot of that has been really easy for at least me and my team, especially expanding my team and, having other people help with the execution. And it's been a great journey of kind of learning how to get there.
And you've really built a lot. So giving a perspective for everyone, you're the owner and founder, CEO of NUUX Studios.
Yeah.
And you started that as a lone wolf. You started out as a solo CEO, founder, and now you have built your team, you have leverage, and as you said, you're scaling growth.
Yeah.
You're at the point now where some people listening to us would be like, well, it's easy for him because he's already done X, Y, and Z. So I know just from experience that it is not easy and there were bumps along the road. So share a little bit about NUUX Studios and that path from being the founder and starting out to where you are today.
Yeah. And a lot of that actually, it goes back to my past, because the easy route or, doing it before, I actually self-taught myself UX design. And a lot of it does relate to, some of the things I studied. Beforehand, when I graduated college, I was actually pre-med. So I studied psychology and neuroscience. And so it was just completely different. And my journey to where I am today just came from me looking for the things I'm most passionate about. And at first, it was jumping into marketing, advertising. I had a great experience, a great role. And a lot of it was in relation to strategy. And so that to me was my strong suit. But it was very technical, very day-to-day, wasn't really new creative problems that I could solve. A lot of it was honestly just spreadsheets and numbers. Yes, a little bit of strategy, well, a lot of strategy, but it wasn't as creative of a job that I was looking for. So just looking for that next step forward, I ended up coming across UX design, and that essentially brings me to where I am today, just solving unique problems. And so, yeah, I would say the start in getting it took a journey. It was just finding things that actually resonated with me. But then when I got here, learning the different things that I needed to do, also kind of understanding within how other teams operate, enterprise level, small teams level. I volunteered my time for free to different startups. I worked at a volunteer place pro bono. And yeah, gave me a lot of experience. But then what I really loved was when I picked up some projects on the side and started helping people with the knowledge that I already knew from things that I learned at different experiences. And I just got addicted to the feeling of going, we earned you this much money or increased your conversions by this amount because of the efforts that we put in there. And a lot of it is just through design. So I found that really cool and like really addicting. So
very satisfying for you.
Exactly, 100%.
Right. So when I want to go back a step before, you mentioned one thing. So you said that you were actually on a pre-med path.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, most people that end up in a pre-med path feel pretty passionate about it. It's not something you kind of fall into by accident. Yeah. So how did you get the peace of mind and the clarity to make a strong decision to step away from that?
Yeah.
How did you lead yourself?
100%. Like a lot of it was due to COVID, first of all. And the second thing is that I am a child of Nigerian parents, Nigerian immigrants. So you are very driven towards certain career paths for that reason. And so medicine was also just something in my mind that was always a path that I almost had to go down. And once I was in my junior into senior year in college. And when COVID happened, we all had a lot of time to just sit down and kind of reflect and just do a lot of things. And during that time, I was shadowing a doctor. I was studying for the MCAT. I was taking one of the hardest classes in the pre-med track, which was biochemistry. I was having a really tough time and I was not enjoying it. I was not having fun. And I think I just sat down and I just went, this is not for me. Like, I cannot imagine myself doing this for the rest of my life and having this feeling, which was just, this is a requirement, not what I actually want to do. So immediately I just sold all my MCAT stuff. I was working in a lab. I quit the lab. I completely switched everything around. I put all my energy into finding my next career move, my next step, which was jumping into advertising/marketing.
How did you have that conversation with your parents?
So luckily I'm third born and my parents, I think I've done this thing with my parents where I've just kind of hit them with extremes sometimes. So at one point they just it's blunted my news dropping to them. Now when I say something, they're like, okay, that makes sense. This one was definitely one of the harder conversations, but for me, the way that I go about things is that I tend to try and have everything prepared before I tell anyone anything. So I had my job lined up. I had my apartment picked out. I did everything. And it was just a call to my parents. Hey, by the way, I'm moving to LA. This is when I'll be gone. This, and this. I have everything figured out. Don't worry about anything. It's okay. And it took them a lot of time. Even after I moved, even after I was in my career, it took them a lot of time to really just put more trust into my decision and just believe that the route that I took is the route for me. But eventually they came around, and if anything, they're super proud. I was able to bring them here to Spain for the first time, and just kind of doing that, especially as an immigrant, a first gen, was amazing.
So you mentioned that you were able to bring them to Spain, and anyone following along, they know that you mentioned you picked out an apartment in LA. So you've also made big life choices. And by the way, I feel like you're creating your life by design, which is very exciting to me. You're not just living by default, but you were able to then bring your parents out to Spain, and it's the first time they ever went there. So I am assuming that, as you said, they have come around and they're very proud of you and they are thrilled with what you've done.
100%. Yeah. Honestly, it makes me really emotional. I'm super happy about it. So
I think it's remarkable, but that's a testimony to, in my mind, strength and the power of clarity. You had a moment where you realized this is not in alignment with what I see and desire for my future.
Exactly.
So how important has clarity been for you in these big decisions that you've made in your career as a founder and what you've built?
Yeah, a lot. I mean, there's a person out there. He's actually an influencer that I actually listen to a decent amount. His name is Ali Abdul, and some of his videos that I've watched in the past have kind of given me a little bit of, I would say, a good thought process for some of the decision making that I've made in the past or things like that. One video that I watched that I think probably resonated with me the most was a video about designing your life. And so it goes back to what you said of you are designing your life and just kind of thinking about what your dream scenario looks like. And essentially, what is the gap between that and where you are? And for me, it's a lot of things. And I could talk about that for forever. But essentially, it is really sitting down and thinking about how I can get to where I want. If the things that I am currently doing, which, for example, when I was in college, I was pre-med, is the path that I'm on taking me towards the lifestyle that I desire in the future? And then same thing when I was working in LA for some of the different jobs that I was, in. Is this really where I want to be for the next 5-10 years? And just kind of paving the path towards where I am now and even for the future. So
one of the things that stands out to me as well in your particular journey is you're not afraid of change. You're not afraid to say, I've invested this much in this degree and this career path, but now that I'm aware it's not going to be in alignment with my core values and what I see as my life, I am willing to step away and I am willing to face that change, which many people would be scared to do.
Yeah.
So I do want to talk about what you've built with NUUX Studios, but I just want to stay here for one more minute. How do you face that fear? And if someone is in that situation, do you have even a small step they could take to create change in their life and get over that fear of the change?
Yeah. For me, honestly, it's just recognizing the state of the world that we're in today. It's the traditional pathway isn't the solution, as it might not be the solution for everyone. It's still one path that you can take, but we
Right.
live in an era where you can be a startup founder working on multiple different projects at the same time. And just the career path. You could be someone who's working on your own personal brand within a specific industry, and you can still work within corporate. You can be a content creator. You can jump between your startup and your full-time job. It's not one way. It's not one directional anymore. And because of that, any career path can look any type of way. It just kind of opens up my mind to going, I can design mine anyhow, as long as I know that I'm solving different problems. And I think if you are solving a problem, someone's problem, you are useful to someone. And that's truly what, in terms of, paying the bills, that's what it is. As
Right.
long as you learn a skill, and with all the resources there are online, I self-taught myself. A lot of it was free. It was just on YouTube. And then, volunteering, going to different tech events just to see who would let me work on their different startup for free. Yeah, there's so many things out there, so many opportunities you can take advantage of. And it's really just taking that step of really acknowledging it doesn't have to look one way or another. It's just however you want it to look.
When you were in that grind and you were taking advantage of opportunity, seeking out opportunity, doing things for free, all of that, how did you end up becoming a founder of your own company versus being a superstar in someone else's company? How did that occur?
Yeah, this one's kind of tough. So at my first job where I worked was it was a company named Spark Foundry, and they are an agency that it's owned by Publicis Group. And everyone there, I was really lucky to have that experience. I really enjoyed it. Everyone at that job to me was insanely smart. I loved it.
Right.
No matter what, if I had a question, anyone that I went to either had the answer or knew where to go to find it. And unfortunately, I didn't find that at the other enterprise I worked at. There were many times where I just kind of doubted some of the different advice that I was given or the resources that were available to me. And I think it was definitely at this job that I took way more ownership and accountability in my own personal growth and learning within the skills, because it wasn't just self-teaching myself and jumping into all these startups. I was kind of used to that already, but I had the assumption that it would be like the first company. I jump
Right.
in, hey, teach me everything I need to know. I have all these questions, but the responses I got made me go, let's fact check that. And to me, I want to be around people who can consistently help me grow and
Mhm.
also work on really exciting projects. I think that's the whole reason why I jumped into this. And so if I'm not really passionate about the project that I'm working on or about the work that I'm doing, I don't really have the motivation to do it. And so when it comes to, the agency, where for one, the feeling of just saying I'm responsible for that increase or that positive growth, that's addicting in and of itself. But it's also
Yes.
really fun to do it for projects and companies that I think are cool, that have really cool web applications, really cool brand stories. That's really what I built NUUX around. And yeah.
When you started out, so you left that company where you just were not feeling, it sounds like you weren't feeling a strong alignment with the vibe or
Yeah.
confidence in the guidance and
Yeah.
information, right?
Yeah.
So there was a disconnect there. And I get it, in your industry, there can be more than one way to do something. So it
Right.
may not have been that they were 100% wrong. It's just that it was
Exactly.
different, and it wasn't giving you the satisfaction or confidence that you were maximizing what was possible with the guidance you were getting there. So you decided to leave.
Right. Exactly.
And was that you just were like, okay, I'm going on my own?
Yeah, well, it was a little bit of both. Like, I had my 9 to 5, and it's exactly like you said. It was just comparative to some of the different things that I saw on LinkedIn, for example, or even some of the different creators that worked at some of these, top performing tech companies, seeing their workflows or their outputs, their projects. I'm like, wow, that is insane work. I want to do stuff like that. Why aren't we doing stuff
Right.
here? That's really where the motivation came from. But when I had my 9 to 5, pretty much 5 to 9. Other people would say, oh, I'm going to go do my routine or I'm going to go do this. I was working on my agency. So it was just kind of building up my clientele until I got to the point where I was able to fully rely on the agency. So from there, it was a lot easier, honestly, because you only have so much time in a day that you can focus on your day job and then your side
Right.
hustle, trying to turn that into your main hustle.
Your main
But
job, right?
exactly, once I switched over, it was a lot easier. Now I'm focusing on this completely and consistently. So growth there, I think, is a lot easier and a lot faster.
Mark, I am going to tell you right now, anyone who is still listening to us, which I know there's people out there listening, they want to know how long that took.
I would say, so I started NUUX Design Studios in April of 2024, and I quit my job in July of 2025. So a little over
I'm going to give some golf course applause, if that's okay. All right. So that good. Okay. So, and when I say the golf course applause, even if it had taken you 2 years, I think you would still be satisfied. So it's not that there's a right or wrong time frame, but I do know that people listening, that is a question that comes up to me, and I'll get messages afterwards like, how long, did that take? So it took you, I'll say around a year, right, to develop that confidence. And so you were really working intensely on your 9 to 5, and then you were just treating that 5 to 9 as that was your future. So you were maintaining a pretty intense schedule consistently for a while.
Yeah. And I mean, it was a lot. I'm not going to lie. It is a commitment. And that's the realistic part that I tell people as well. It does take a lot of time. But I mean, it also comes with, sometimes I just kind of tell people I love the work. I'm passionate about it. So it doesn't feel
right.
like work. So it's like,
right. And it's, the other thing too, is I think about in terms of being a lot of time and a long time. So it's a lot of time each day in the day while you're doing it. But if you really think in the grand scheme of your future, work life and the career that you're going to have, about a year is, here's what I tell people. How quickly does a year go by anyway? The time is going to pass anyway. Would you rather a year from now, whenever you're listening to this, be that much closer to your goals and dreams? Even if you're not there, even if they're not comfortable yet, like if they haven't replaced their income securely enough, they're ready to move. But what if you were halfway there? It would still be great.
Exactly.
So, yeah. So it's, but it did take time and dedication. Did you ever notice a drop off towards the end there? Did you notice a drop off in your commitment to your 9 to 5, or were you just really able to stay fully in it, and give your best there, even as you got close to that tail end?
Yeah. I mean, there were definitely mood swings is what I would kind of call it, because there were periods of time that year did feel like a long time when I was doing it.
I'm sure it did.
Of course.
I'm sure it did.
Exactly. So there are periods of times in that year where I would just feel for maybe a month, what project am I working on? Like, what is the point in this? Especially when maybe you have stakeholders that are, dragging it out, or there's random complications, or it's not even related to the project. It's related to the politics of the company. And so many things that could make your job just slightly harder or just take you away from doing work that you're actually passionate about. I would say those things are what affected my passion or my, commitment towards my 9 to 5. Whereas other periods of times where I'd get something down the pipeline and they say, hey, you're going to start this project soon. And I got super excited. It was almost like, it would switch my attention. It was like a gear switch between going to my 9 to 5 excited or my 5 to 9. So.
Okay. All right. So that's cool. So you navigated all of that. Now you're a founder that is wearing all the hats. Tell us about that. Tell us about the first 9 to 12 months of NUUX Design Studios being up and running and your full-time commitment.
In my full-time commitment? Yeah. That part was very difficult. For one, just managing your time, also dealing with the pressure of going, it is all on me now. I think that part is probably the hardest one to deal with. But understanding that you can't do everything alone, I think that realization for me was very big and very key for expansion. Just finding more clientele, being able to, satisfy clients, for example. There was just some areas in which I was not able to just execute on. And I would tell myself sometimes in the past, I would overwhelm my days. I would say, yeah, I can take care of that. I can do this in a day. I can do that. But then I didn't realize how many things I actually was stacking up, at the end of the day, because I also time block my calendar. I would look at my
Yes.
for the next day and I'm like, oh my God, I am about to work a 12, 14-hour day because I thought I could take care of all these different things. And really it's just kind of relying on your team to be able to, take some of this work off your plate and having trust in people as well. I think that's the largest part because there are many times where I go, I'll just do this because it's just going to make things easier and a lot faster. I don't need to explain this. I don't know if you're even going to do it right. And I think that was
Right.
that I had at the beginning. So a lot of it for me was just learning to trust other people and bringing in people who can actually help me. And then also just understanding my value as well. I think that's a large part that people out there, especially for me, struggle with, of just understanding your value and communicating that with your potential clients so that you are paid for the work that you do.
Yes.
You are
Yes.
valued. So
How long was that period where you were solo? Like at what point did you bring on at least the first piece of leverage?
yeah, it was a year. It was a full, so from
Okay.
April 2024 into, I think I remember actually, I did a trip to Europe for like the second time in October of 2024. And I had 3 projects that I was working on at the same time, very large projects, and I missed deadlines. I was very exhausted. I was working consistently while trying to travel. Like I would just
Right.
go into a coffee shop, miss an entire day in like Paris,
Right.
try to explore.
Right. Right.
I'm just working. And that made me realize like I can't handle this on my own. Like this is where I'm hitting a wall. I can't move forward. How am I supposed to, for one, just earn more or grow my company or do more internal projects just for my own website, case studies and things like that. If I'm struggling to keep up with just my client work and I only have 3 projects, it doesn't sound like a lot, but it was a ton. And
It's a
so,
lot. Right.
yeah. And I
Right.
think that was when I read a book. I think it was The 4-Hour Work Week that just talked.
Yes.
Yeah,
It's a
exactly.
great book. It's a great
Right.
book.
I don't know why the word of delegation just didn't exist in my dictionary at that point in time until I read this book. And I was like, wow, it's a really good idea. Let me look into that. That was when I reached out to, some other designers to just kind of help me take on some of these projects. And in the same breath, it was like I was teaching them as well. So that was me just kind of undergoing mentorship and also learning from other people as well. So I think it was a great step towards the right direction, just in terms of learning how to lead or project manage and things like that.
So it sounds like your first hires were in the design capacity, not
Yes.
operational. It was more
Yeah.
designers. Okay.
Yeah.
When did you bring in, and I'm assuming this, thinking about where you are today, when did you bring in like the operations side in terms of leverage?
Yeah. Pretty quickly, actually, after that, I would say, so it was around near the end of the year that I decided, around 2024 end of the year, that I decided to bring someone in. I think it was the beginning of the next year, maybe February, where I actually brought in a project manager. At that time, I think it was me, it was 2 junior designers and my PM. And I was struggling to kind of just make sure the project management tool that we were using had everything organized. The context was there. It's not just me in the calls understanding everything and then I can just delegate that. It was a lot because I was still also taking on projects. So if I'm doing some work on my own, am I also going to project manage everyone and QA all the work and do the communication? It was too much. So that was when I realized, hey, I need a PM. I work with a PM at my 9 to 5. Let me bring one into my 5 to 9. So
How has that journey been of bringing on talent, allowing talent to develop, delegation? Like, has that gone? I'll ask in this manner: has it gone more smoothly than you expected? Was it more challenging than you expected, or right around what you expected?
I would say it's challenging, honestly. I would say I've learned to have test projects ready. So it's very difficult for me to commit to bringing someone in full time at least consistently into our agency, only because you never know how they might work and, what things they've done in the past and stuff like that. You can see their resume, you can see their portfolio, but a lot of people can have great work, but not great work ethics or maybe they just are used to a different work stream or workflow. It's very difficult. So
Right.
I always test the relationship with test projects that we have come in, and it's typically smaller projects. And based on that, I'm able to kind of have a judgment on how they work. And so that's always been something that's helped me out understand if this person is the right culture fit and also good at what they do. So
Well, how are you keeping yourself growing as that leader and CEO? What steps are you taking to make sure that you're continuing to develop in that capacity?
yeah, honestly, a lot of it is really just, I would say, being collaborative with my team. I try not to take in my mind, we're a team. Yes, I am project managing everything, but it's collaborative, and that's how I want it to continue to feel. And when it comes to, the work that we're doing and their ability to kind of let me know their ideas or even take ownership of different portions of the projects, I want them to feel as free-minded as possible.
Mhm.
So that's really just it. And then making sure the hard part is just kind of staying on people to make sure that we are accountable for our work and we are staying on top of our work and just still producing good quality. And then other than that, it's just being around other people that are also in similar fields or who are also very driven and ambitious with their own businesses and things like that. And I learned a lot from them and will continue to do so.
I am going to now shift gears.
Yeah.
I am sure anyone listening is like, wait a minute, what was that bit about Spain? Okay, so you're launching this company. I'm assuming the launch took place when you were still primarily living in LA.
Yes.
You now live in Spain. So
Yes.
tell us a little bit more about that decision making, when you had clarity, why that was important. Share that story.
Yeah. So I really wanted to travel. I think the first time I left the country on my own, at least because I've traveled with my parents, but I left the country on my own and I went to Greece and I fell in love with traveling. It was like,
Right.
wow, this is amazing. I really want to do this again. So I did a solo trip to Spain and went to a couple of different cities and I fell in love with Madrid. And to me, I was like, maybe it's just because it was like another place I went to. I fell in love with it because, it was my first time traveling. So I came back again and solo traveled a lot of different cities in Western Europe, a lot of like the large ones everyone says go to live in, and like Paris, London, went to a lot of different places as well, Amsterdam. And throughout all of that, Madrid still to me was like my favorite. It was just such an amazing city.
Right.
And so when I was doing all this, I gave myself a deadline. So actually the July quitting my job, that was the deadline I gave myself when it came to moving to Spain. So a lot of my motivation also for starting NUUX was to give me the freedom to be able to work from anywhere at any time. And so I wanted the freedom to work on any projects from anywhere. And in order to do that, I needed my own agency. And that goes back to the lifestyle I wanted to create. I saw digital nomads out there and I thought that was really cool. And
Right.
so, yeah, that's kind of how it happened. And
So when did you get to Spain?
I got here in July of 2025.
Okay. So you set your deadline and you hit it.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah.
This comes back, and the bits that I knew, and thank you for sharing so much more, but the bits I knew about your story, that's what made me lead with there's a gap for most high performers and creatives, regardless of the industry, where we have the ambition, we have the dream, and then we just don't execute. Now,
Yeah.
you are a living, breathing, talking example of someone that is having the creativity, having the ambition, setting the goals, and then executing. I'm not saying you're perfect. We all know that it's not. Where does that come from? Where does your ability to say, I am going to make that happen, and then you move towards it? What do you do on a daily basis? Give us the secrets.
Yeah, honestly, I actually talked about this recently with one of my friends, and I gained a different perspective on this as well. So it's like, to me, it's always been a good thing, but it can also potentially be a dangerous thing, apparently. For me, it is making other people my accountability partner by just consistently telling them what my plans are. Once I've kind of thought it out, I knew exactly, I knew that I wanted to come to Spain. And so everyone, anywhere, doesn't matter if you're a random person I met in a bar or my best friend, I'm consistently going to tell you, hey, yeah, I'm moving to Spain. This is when I plan to move there. And so because I have so many people who have heard me say this, they are all the people that I now have to prove right. I don't want I don't want to let them down. And not only that, but in the history of the things that I've done in the past of saying, this is what I want to do, and then actually executing on it. For my family, my closest friends, they look at me as this type of person who can do that. And to me, it's really grateful. Like it makes me also emotional, like that they think of me in that light. And so it makes me think that I don't want to let that image that they have of me down either. So it's really just using these two things as an accountability act for me to get up and do the things that I need to do to make sure that I will get to the place that I need to be, which was Spain. And that was just consistently putting in hours to build my agency. And that did have to do a lot with working, but also a lot with luck. So yeah, I was just super grateful that everyone listened when I told them I wanted to move to Spain.
I think that there's a key element in what you've done as well, is that you make these decisions and then these, I'll say, proclamations, and you share it, which is so critical. It's the more you share it, the more likely it is to happen. But before you make that proclamation, you're making sure you have clarity that's in alignment with what you want for yourself.
100%.
And I want to explain what I mean by that a little bit. You could just as easily be a doctor right now, or finishing up your rotations to pick your specialty.
Right.
If you had applied that same dynamic to your pre-med track, and if you had shown up in that, whichever word you want to use for it, like loyalty, or someone who lives out what they have proclaimed, that could have happened. But that dream was not in alignment with what you desire. So I think you're so strong and confident in the desire for what you want in your own life, and then you proclaim it.
Thank you so much.
Did that even make sense?
No, that made a lot of sense. I completely agree. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And honestly, thank you for those. Those are kind words.
Well, I mean, I think it's a big differentiator. And I'm sure there is someone listening to us right now who's probably in that spot where they also value being that person that is reliable and consistent and performs and makes things happen. And they may have attached it to a dream that was not necessarily their own internal dream.
Exactly.
And now they are stuck in a situation, in either a career they didn't desire that's not satisfying,
Right.
or possibly relationships that are challenging. And then they're not, and I know this, I don't mean for this to sound selfish, but they're not living their fullest life.
Yeah.
And they may feel trapped.
Yeah. And that's exactly what I meant when it came to the dangerous side of it. And that was the conversation that I had with a friend earlier that essentially said that they were and are that person in their family. But because of all of that pressure, it for me, it always felt uplifting. Like, well, that's great that they look at me like that. I have to keep going. I had to, especially because of the pathway I'm on, I'm passionate about it. It's all things that I want to do. For them, it was pressure. It was just that. It was a lot of weight on their shoulders, and that towards maybe the things that they aren't completely passionate about was crushing. And that gives someone anxiety. It gives them a lot of issues mentally. So I think it's tough.
So yeah, and a lot of times in order to do it, you have to face the tough conversations. You are going to disappoint some people.
Yeah.
You are going to have people that out of love are going to try to hold you back because they don't want you to get hurt. Like, that kind of.
Yeah.
So it isn't that it's easy, and yet look what is possible if you face those fears around change, disappointment, possibly even losing some people, that are close relationships. And yet there's this energy and creative flow and possibility. And now you're impacting others, and you are and again, I get it. I'm sure every day is not perfect, and there's still disappointment that comes along and bumps in the road. But you're in a flow and a zone that is in alignment with what's really important to you overall in the big picture of your life.
100%. And I think you also touched on something that I think is really important to keep in mind when you are, say, someone who might be listening and going down this journey. It's making sure that you do have that clarity and you understand it is solid internally that this is the journey that you want to embark on. Because surprisingly, and I talked about this all the time with my friends, whenever I would tell people, I knew I was going to do it. I was confident in my decision, but a lot of people would almost project their maybe fears that they had of themselves, maybe if they were in my shoes, onto me. And sometimes they would sit there and think, is this really what I want to do? Is this the right path? Am I making the right decision? But because it always came back to, no, I know exactly this is where I want to be. I always rejected it. So I think it's making sure that you are solid so that when that does happen, it doesn't veer you off path, because those
That's
aren't your,
right.
it's theirs.
Yeah,
You know?
it is. And you can use it. I think it's a very smart move to listen and evaluate and then take your decision and run it through that filter, because if
Right.
anything, it further distills your decision that it's right.
Exactly.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's almost like a way of getting even more clarity in your commitment.
100%. Yeah, I agree.
So what is next for what you're doing? Where do you want to take NUUX Design Studios? Like what has you excited and getting up in the morning on
Yeah.
fire to make it happen?
To me, it's honestly just bringing in some more, like really just creating some really cool work. So there's still so much work that we can do. And something that I would say is my goal just overall is to be responsible for something really cool in the, like just contribute to a really cool product, a really cool application, whatever it is. Like, for example, I want to be the person that says, hey, the experience with the Apple Vision Pros, the AI goggles,
Right.
that was me. I designed that.
Mm-hmm.
That is so cool. And I want to have that experience. And so to get there, I think it's really just building a design agency that tells that story, that people understand we have that authority. And then people come to us for their projects, for really cool ideas. They really want us to work on it. And I just want to partner with people who have really cool ideas, people who I respect, people who are really cool. So yeah.
Well, on a funny side note, I had another guest on the interstate that's an attorney that was living and practicing in Miami and had a thriving career, but she felt so compelled to live in Paris that she left like this, top of her game at this big firm, launched her own firm in Paris, and she moved there and is thriving. I'm going to link that to your episode because I think someone interested in your story may also find that interesting. So,
Okay.
quick question for you.
Mhm.
When she moved to Paris, she didn't speak French, right? Now, do you speak Spanish? Did you when you moved there? And if you didn't, are you speaking it now?
Sí, hablo español. I did not speak any Spanish before I moved here at all. And I do Duolingo, which people say Duolingo is not helpful. I disagree. It is so helpful. It gives you so much vocab and it gives you your own pace of like learning. In my mind,
Right.
it's like if you read Atomic Habits, that is Duolingo
Yes,
in and of
that's
itself.
right.
Right.
Yes.
And so that's great. But another thing I did, I have a cat and my cat had an emergency while he was here. And so I took him to the vet. He actually ended up being fine. He was just slightly anxious. So I just kind of felt bad for him. I had trouble communicating with the vet and that was very difficult for me. That to me was my breaking point to go, I need to speed up my learning process. I don't recommend this for everyone, but I went through an intensive course. I still am in the course. So I'm still learning every day. You are just going to continue learning the language. And when you're here, it's even better, but it was 4 hours per day and it is still 4 hours per day. So I'm just learning Spanish consistently. I speak it with my friends. I try my best to only speak Spanish when I go into the streets.
Right. Good. So you're bracing. So, and I think that's a key too. Anyone who may be listening that's intrigued about living abroad, you can just make it happen.
Yeah.
You don't get stuck in when I hit a proficiency at this level, then I'll do that. No, if it is burning, a desire of yours, you can do it, and then you can figure out things like that after you get there.
Yeah, 100%. And the great thing is, especially as English speakers, we are lucky in the fact that a lot of other people speak English as well. So it's not like it's impossible to go out there and assimilate into another country. So definitely doable.
When you think about, let's see, we're recording this, you and I, in the middle of the year 2026. Where do you see NUUX Design Studios in, say, June 2031?
Hopefully we're comparable to other giants in the design industry, like Meta Labs, for example, the people who they're responsible for pretty much every cool app. They've done Uber, they've done a lot of other stuff. And at that time, I also want to be able to another thing that I did recently was I went to the config last year and it was really cool just seeing some of the different talks. some of the different ways that people creatively came up with their own workflows that wasn't like the traditional, hey, this is the design process that we have to follow. This is what we did and it worked, and this is why it worked. And this is some of the cool work that we produced with it. I want to be able to do that. I want to go into a really cool, renowned conference, whether that is Config or something else,
Right.
and give a talk. I want to just kind of showcase the work and also just be very technical. Like, one of the coolest talks that I watched was the rebranding of Robinhood and just how they specifically
Oh,
went.
yeah.
It was so cool. Just like this very small details on like how they compounded to make a really cool new look and feel across the product was amazing. And same thing for, Stripe, their redesign, just kind of seeing how some of these design leaders talk about their decision making to me is really impressive. And I want to be at that stage. I want to have the brand authority where we're able to speak on these things and people listen. So
That's great. I have no doubt that you're going to make that happen. Looking at your track record, both, personally, education, business, even where you live. Mark, I want to thank you so much for being a guest on the Interstate. And I definitely want to keep an eye on what's happening with your company. I hope that you'll even come back and be a guest again and you can share some of the progress that you've made.
of
So
course.
thank you for being here. If you are listening to this episode of the Interstate, I hope you'll come back. And if you were going to move out of the country where you currently live, put in the comments where you would move to. Thank you again for being with us.